Okay, good afternoon, Zamboanga. So our topic for today is chapter 3 of the book, which is financial statements. Can you see the slide? I think you can see it. Just to be sure. Okay. So previously on FABM1, we have discussed the recording phase of the accounting process. So ano nga po pala yung recording phase? Mag-recall lang po tayo. Mr. Bogay, ano ba yung recording phase? Ano yung first step of the accounting cycle?
Sir?
Mahina, pero narinig ko yung transaction, if I'm not mistaken. No? Can someone tell me ano po yung mga first, yung recording process? Yes, Miss Banaag?
Napindot lang po.
Napindot lang, okay. No? Ano po yung recording phase? Yung first 4 steps of the accounting? Yes, Mr. Geronimo.
Identifying the transactions po.
Yes.
Journalizing, posting, and then preparing a trial balance po.
Yes, no? So yung identifying transactions, yung journalizing or recording, and then yung posting, and the number 4 is yung ating trial balance. In that case, unadjusted. No? Before we proceed to the lesson, introduce ko lang itong company na to. So I'm sure especially mga gusto maging CPA in the future know this company. It's called Deloitte. No? Pero kung nasa Pilipinas naman tayo, pwede nga tawagin Deloitte. Okay lang naman po. So how do users of financial information know if what is being reported is a true representation of a company's performance? No? You just try to think. No? Paano kaya? No? It's an open question, no? So financial service firms such as Deloitte Tomatsu Limited or Deloitte, no? Or Deloitte, if you want to call it that, provide the service. No? Remember, accounting is a service activity of verifying the accuracy and reliability of a company's financial information. Yun po yung serbisyong ibinibigay ni Deloitte. No? Deloitte consists of thousands of dedicated professionals, most of them CPAs, throughout the world who provide audit, tax consulting, and other financial related services to its clients. No? So, serbisyo po. No? Serbisyo, hindi perwisyo. No? Sa kanilang mga kliyente. Deloitte earns its revenue by the time spent performing these financial services. No? Sipin nyo lang, no? Just doing these financial services, Deloitte reported $35.2 billion in revenue, no, during the fiscal year ended May 31, 2015. No? So, baka mas mataas na ngayon, no? If not for the COVID-19 pandemic. And even though it may not have been paid immediately, Deloitte must recognize it at the time the services are performed. No? Kailangan i-recognize niya kahit hindi pa niya natatanggap yung pera. Deloitte also incurs expenses related to earning its revenue. As mentioned yesterday, hindi po tayo pwedeng kumita ng hindi po gumagastos muna. So let's say magtitinda po tayo, no? Kahit fishball na lang po, bibili ka muna ng mga puhunan mo, yung fishball, yung mantika, yung kariton, yung sauce bago po tayo kumita. No? So expenses are the costs, sabi nga rito, necessary to earn the revenue. Some examples of expenses incurred include, yun nga, no? Ito yung mga expenses nila. Magpapasweldo sila ng mga tao. No? Wages and benefits. Remember, organization and management, kay Ms. Blanco, no? Wages and benefits, training, no? Travel, no? Minsan papadala pa nila sa ibang bansa yung mga empleyado, business insurance, as well as computer and office supplies. Hindi naman po pwede magtrabaho yan ng tao nang walang, lalo na ngayon, walang laptop, walang cellphone. No? Siguro cellphone, kanya-kanyang bilhin, but yung laptop, Usually, company provided po yan. So to properly measure the company's financial performance, it is important to ensure that the expenses incurred, no, lahat po ng mga gastusin ay naka-recorded on the same year as the revenue generated by the expense. And matching, remember matching concept? The revenue and expenses within the same year provides DELWA with the most accurate financial results to evaluate its financial performance. As much as possible, malapit-lapit po tayo sa katotohanan. Hindi po overstated nor understated ang ating mga revenues and expenses. And determine the amount of costs necessary to earn its revenue. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan malaman ng isang company for every 100 peso of profit, magkano po doon yung ginagastos niya para ma-reach niya yung 100 pesos of profit. Yun po ang ibig sabihin niya. So, we're done with our featured company. So, topics to be discussed. So, we're already at the summarizing phase. So, our topics are adjusting entries, preparation of financial statements. So, dadaanan lang natin si financial statements since financial statements will be discussed in greater detail sa ating FABM2. So yan, timing and reporting, accounting period, accrual versus cash basis, and recognition of revenues and expenses. Then adjusting accounts, we will discuss them in detail. Yung worksheet, no? And the financial statements. Okay, no? Pakita ko lang muna si, wait lang. Yung correction ko kagabi. I think you saw it already. Wait lang. Download. Wait lang po. Okay. Pakita ko lang yung errata. So, actually, they're pretty much similar. No? Nagkataon lang yung nakuhanan kong reference is just the same. Okay. Accounting concepts, ulitin lang po natin. So, here is yung accrual basis of accounting natin. No? So, thank you, no, Mr. Bumatayo. Kahit ako, natututo rin ako, no? It's just unfortunate that I use the same or similar definition. So, accrual basis of accounting, as per the book, states that expenses of the business are recognized or recorded when incurred, no? Immediately po. No? Basta gastusin, record agad. Whether paid or not. No? And revenue is recognized when earned, whether collected or not. No? Pag meron kang revenue or expenses, record po agad. No? I-recognize po natin. ASAP. No? This one is from the book itself. And, okay. Yung prudence, no, yung conservatism, so pinalitan ko lang ng konti. Accountants should, yung mga naka-red, yun po yung revisions, exercise a degree of caution. No? Ingat-ingat lang po dun sa ginagawa dun sa accrual basis. Exercise a degree of caution in making significant decision regarding the recognition of items in the accounting records. No? Baka bigla mo ni-record agad, pero na-overstate pala or na-understate yung kita or yung gastusin. In case of doubt, no? Ayun yung caveat, recognize the liabilities and expenses and do not recognize assets and income ASAP. No? Ito yung priority mo, yung liabilities and expenses over assets and income. So yun po yung slight correction. No? It's a better explanation of the conservatism concept. Saan yun? Don't worry, nakaano naman po yan dun sa pinost ko po yan. Wala. Okay. So, balik po tayo. Okay. Ah, wait lang. Nangyari. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so yun, ha? Yun po yung pag-clear ko, no? Accrual basis accounting is therefore in accordance with GAAP. No? Sa mga malalaking company, usually accruals. No? Accruals-based accounting. But since we're focusing more on sole proprietorship, no? Individuals and some small companies, however, do use yung cash basis. So cash basis is justified for small businesses because they often have few receivables and payables. Hindi po ganun kalalaki yung transaction ng ng mga small businesses, no? Minsan chamba-chamba na yung mga 1,000 to 3,000. Let's say sa isang sari-sari store or sa bakery. Usually 20, 50 lang, mga smaller bills, no? So in essence, medium and large companies ang gumagamit ng accrual basis. Yan po yung clarification po. So yan, no? So yung time period, no, na-discuss na rin po natin kahapon. So the economic life of a business can be divided into artificial time periods, no? So even if the business is going concern, kailangan meron ka pa ring time periods, whether monthly, quarterly, or annually. Yan. Wait lang po Ingay na naman yung okay. No? So discuss muna natin si financial statements. Can someone tell me what are financial statements? No? Kahit in your own words lang po. What are financial statements? Ano po ba ang saysay ng financial statements? Yun po yung main event ng ating FABM1. No? Okay, yes, Lauron.
Para ma-ensure po, sir, na may accuracy yung mga transaction.
Okay. Huh? Yes, nawala. Santos.
It is basically po yung record po ng lahat po ng business activities po ng organization. Ako
Okay.
po.
Actually, maraming definition pero okay yung mga binigay yung citations, no? Balik natin. Okay. So financial statements are performed or prepared by the accountant, no? To inform the owners, no? Owner or S, no? But sa sole proprietorship, it's owner. Management and other interested parties regarding the status or status, no? Whatever you want to use. Particularly the results of its operations and its financial condition. Ano ba ang saysay ng pagre-resign ko para magnegosyo? Kumikita ba ako? O baka mas okay naman yata mamasukan na lang ako? No? Abonado pa ako eh. No? Siyempre, pag mga sole proprietor, yun po yung lagi nilang concern. No? Kumikita ba talaga ako? No? Or baka break-even lang ako. And in this case, yung break-even po, technically, lugi ka rin po. No? So these statements, no, are often audited by government agency. No, yun nga po si BIR na mukhang internal users of accounting but in reality external po kasi government. Accountants, no, mga auditors, firms, etc. to ensure the accuracy for tax financing or investing purposes. Usually, pag uutang po tayo sa bangko, check-in din po yan ng mga, ng mga banks. O, pautangin kita naghihingalo yung business mo, paano kita pahiramin? No? Yan nun po. Nakikita nila kagad yung financial condition ng business mo. Yan. So, they are structured representations, medyo pang-college yung definition nito, of the entity's financial position financial performance and the cash flows of an entity that is useful to a wide range of users, no? And sino naman po yung mga users na binabanggit diyan? Sino kaya yung mga user na yon? No? Remember yung ating mga internal and external users. No? Sila po ang gumagamit for making economic decisions. Okay, no? Naligaw yung picture ng Blackpink. Hindi ko na napalitan ng pusa, but yeah. So this is, yun nga, Blackpink, quote unquote. So let's say Blackpink is the entity. No? So there are 4 financial statements. Can someone tell me yung isa, no? Isa-isa lang para may extra points po tayo. Ano po yung pakibigyan po ng example? Paunahin natin yung iba. Sige, si Mr. Lim naman. Mamaya na si Lauron. Lim?
Sir, one example po or one po ng yun dapat statements po, yung income statement po.
Okay, income statement. Mamaya na, Lauron. Okay. Pikana.
Cash flow statement po.
Cash flow. Alam na mga niyan, mga misis, no? Mga parents natin. Cash flow. Yes, Del Rosario.
Balance sheet po.
Sorry, mahina.
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet. Del Rosario. Ayun. Tawag ako ng isang random. Nawalan ng wifi si Robbie. Okay. Okay. Pigao. Ano yung last one? Sorry. Pigao. Pigao. Ayun ang point. Sayang. Meron na si ano eh. Sige, Kalano. Wala pa.
Sir, statement of shareholders' equity.
Actually, for owner's equity lang. Shareholders is college. But yeah, we get the point. No? So, actually, nalilito ko no, kung saan dyan si Lisa. Sorry. Ang alam ko yung nasa pinaka-right. No? Pero sabi ng pinsan ko, pamangkin ko nasa left daw. Yeah. Anyway, no? So here, we start with the income statement. No? Ito yung pinakaunang-unang tinitignan. No? Siya yung apple of the eye among the statements. No? Kasi nandyan yung performance ng company. Then, next na gagawin po natin sa financial statements after the income statement is the statement of owner's equity or shareholders, no? Sabi kanina. Yeah. Same lang po yun. Then next, you have the balance sheet. No? Kasi makukuha mo na yung owner's equity, then dadagdag mo siya for the balance sheet as a personification of the basic accounting equation. And last, the statement of cash flows. So we will not focus or discuss them in great detail. No? So kahit yung nasa top bullet point lang po. The statement of comprehensive income or income statement. No? Ito po yung ginagamit na ngayon sa DepEd. Statement of comprehensive income shows the results. No? Kamusta po? No? Let's say, nagtayo na negosyo si Castillo. No? Kamusta? No? Kumita ba? Nalugi po ba? No? Or break even? No? So it shows the results whether the business makes a profit or incurs a loss. And last, all the accounts that are appearing in this statement are called nominal. No? Ibig sabihin ng nominal, pinaganda lang nila na temporary. Pinagandang word ng temporary. Ibig sabihin, yung income mo hindi po magke-carry over sa next year. No? Yung income mo, 1 year story lang po yan. Next year, panibagong kwento na naman po. No? Hindi po siya yung, kumita ako nito, itutuloy ko for the next year yung income na yan. Tapos dagdag. Hindi po siya ganun. Ha? So ito yung mga additional na lang po, additional definitions. So you can just read them during your asynchronous. So elements of the SCI are revenues and expenses. Balikan lang po natin yung module 8 natin or major accounts. Ano po yung revenues? De Leon, Benis Velotica. Ano kaya yung revenue?
Sir, ito po yung mga money generated from business operations.
Sorry. Sige lang, sige lang.
Ito po yung money generated from business operations.
Okay. Sa Tagalog, ito po yung ating kinikita. Kita. So, correct, Leon. And how about, yes, Bogay?
Ano po yun, sir? Sa expenses po?
Sige.
Ano po, sir? Tawag dun. Mga ginagastos, pinagkagastos.
Okay, narinig ko na yung keyword. Medyo mahina yung sounds. I'm not sure kung some part may problema. But I heard yung gastusin. Kita and gastos. Yun ang po muna. Because we have already discussed this in greater detail during the previous grading. And we will rediscuss it in greater detail again sa FABM2. Next is the statement of changes. Usually, merong changes pa in owner's equity. So, ang focus naman niya is yung owner's equity. Kaya nga po, changes in owner's equity. Kung nagkaroon po ba ng increase or decrease o wala. Wala nangyari in the owner's equity. Due to, nag-contribute siya, nagdagdag po siya ng kanyang equity, nagpasok po siya ng additional capital, nag-withdrawal po, and kasama na rin po yung net profit or net loss. So, it shows movement in capital as a result of these 4 elements. So, yun po yung elements, yung 4 na yan. And another thing is that it supplements the balance sheet. Ibig sabihin, yung equity dun sa balance sheet ay galing po kay owner's equity. Statement of changes in owner's equity. Okay. How about the balance sheet? Baka may kaya mag-explain, habang before I show you the yung slide, pinakita ko sandali. Can someone tell me about the balance sheet? Ano po ba yung papel ng balance sheet? Sige, Lauron. Naunahan kayo. Ang bilis ng kamay, Lauron.
Dito po makikita yung financial position ng isang entity.
Okay, financial position. Okay, let's see. So yung balance sheet or also known as the statement of financial position, yun yan, pinapakita niya po as of a given date. It's like taking a picture. Ito yung itsura mo nung ganitong araw na to. Yan yung financial position mo nung araw na to. So all the accounts that are appearing in this statement are called real accounts. Or other books will say permanent accounts. So in this case, in our book, it's called real and nominal. So indicating that they retain their balances. Ibig sabihin, kung magkano yung asset mo, itong as of December 31, 20x9, yun pa rin po yung magke-carry na assets on January 1, 20Y0. Ganun po dapat. Indicating that they retain their balances from the end of one period to the beginning of the next. And there are 2 forms, account form and report form. Again, hindi pa po natin focus yung dalawang yan. Basta makagawa lang po muna tayo ng balance sheet. and the elements of the statement of financial position. Recap lang po, ano po yung assets? Miss Lakap? Ano po ba yung saysay ng assets? No? Nagre-review lang po tayo bago tayo makaproceed sa next sa ano natin, no? Yes, sige, Miss biglang dumami. Ganito na lang, banaag sa assets, talisik sa liabilities, tapos yun yung nagtaas na isa kanina. Banaag. Pikana sa equity. Okay.
Yung
Banaag
asset
sa
po
assets.
is yung resource of value that can be converted to cash po.
Okay. How about liabilities? Talisik. Talisik ba yun? Yeah.
Yung liabilities po, ito po yung mga responsibilities or yung utang po ng business sa iba pong business.
And equity, pikana.
Ito po yung owner's interest or claim ng assets ng business after subtracting the interest of the creditors po.
Yes. No? So, kung nakalimutan po natin yung definition, you may check our previous modules. No? Hindi ko na po in-exaggerate para hindi po tayo text heavy. And last but not the least, no? Yung statement of cash flows. So, ako muna mag-explain. Statement of cash flows or cash flow statement provides the data regarding all cash inflows. No? Lahat po ng cash na natatanggap ng company. From its ongoing operations and external investment sources. Recap lang po. Can someone tell me what is cash? Michael? Katukayo, no? Michael, what is cash? Money. It's crime. Okay, Okay, Miss Casanova.
Ito po yung liquid asset po. I mean, the most
Sorry, hindi ko
liquid
narinig yung
asset.
bandang dulo kahit i-text mo, i-message mo na lang. But I got some bit of it, no? So okay naman. Just to check lang. Okay. Yan, no? The most liquid asset daw. Okay, so according to Ms. Casanova, no, yun po yung pinaka-most liquid asset, no? So includes cash made by the business through operations, investment, and financing. So yung total po nitong tatlo na to, no, operations, investment, and financing, is called the net cash flow. So lahat po ng mga transactions na naka-reflect sa ating statement of cash flows ay galing po sa cash account ng general ledger. No? Kaya nga po cash flow kasi lahat po ay galing sa cash account. Therefore, only cash transactions are hereby shown in this statement. No, yun lang po ang ipapakita natin. Cash transactions appearing in the general ledger will be merely classified into operating, investing, and financing activities. Okay? No, hindi ko yata. Okay. So ito muna yung relationship ng ating financial statements. No? So kung makikita nyo, no, ito yung sequence. Una muna si income statement. No? Revenue minus expenses. No? So pag nakuha mo na yan, you have the difference between the revenue and the expenses, you have the income summary or net income. No? So these are temporary accounts. Pag nakuha mo na yan, pwede ka nang gumawa ng ating owner's equity. No? Owner's name drawing, tsaka yung income. Once na na-complete mo naman si statement of owner's equity, kompleto mo na, no? Meron ka ng owner's equity, you will have the balance sheet. No? So, from right going to left. Yan. No? Actually, yan. Mas magandang drawing po. So, yung income statement, ito po yung detailed operations, no? Operating revenues minus operating expense equals to operating income plus or minus yung iba pang revenues or expenses. So sa 2 na natin discuss yan. Then, net income for statement of owner's equity, you have the beginning owner's equity, yung panimula. Plus the additional investments. Ano po ba yung mga additional investments ni owner? And then, itong net income na to, no? Plus the net income, minus kung ano yung mga drawing niya, no? Yung mga withdraw niya or withdrawals. No? The total of which you have the ending owner's equity and yun po ang ilalagay po natin sa ating balance sheet. Yan, no? Mas kompleto yung illustration. Accounting cycle. So you can see, no, parang outlier si cash flow statement kasi galing lang siya sa cash account. So we have already na-discuss na kanina, identify transactions, journalizing, posting, and trial balance. We are already done or halfway through the accounting cycle. So ito naman po, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are the 4 items that we will be discussing. So hopefully matapos po natin ng 4 o'clock. No? If not, mag-extend lang ako konti. Hindi naman yung tipong 1 hour. Mga worst case 15 to 20 minutes. Malabo naman. So the accounting cycle, so we're done already, no? Na-discuss na kanina, identifying transactions. O, alam na po, journalizing, kaya naka-red na po, ibig sabihin, kompleto na po ito. No? Posting, journal entries are then posted to the general ledger where a summary of all the transactions to individual accounts can be seen. And number 4, trial balance. No? So at the end of the accounting period, which may be quarterly, monthly, or yearly, depending on the company, a total balance is calculated. Okay. Okay. Depending on the company, a total balance is calculated for the accounts. So natapos po natin last time, no? Trial balance. Now, ito po yung topics. Worksheet. So when the debits and credits in the trial balance don't match, the bookkeeper must look for errors and make corrective adjustments that are tracked on the worksheet. So ano po yung ibig sabihin nun? No? Papakita ko po later. And number 6, adjusting entries. At the end of the company's accounting period, adjustments must be posted to accounts for accruals or deferrals. No? 7, financial statements. It's the summarizing function. No? Sinasummarize mo na po. Yun na po yun. Kumbaga, yun na yung, ano yung Tagalog nun? Yung buod. No? Kumbaga, yun na yung pinaka-performance task. The balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement can be prepared using the correct balances. And last but not the least, closing entries. The revenue and expense accounts are closed and zeroed out for the next accounting cycle. Some books, no, state that reversing entries ay kasali rin sa accounting cycle. But here, no, ginawa ng ating author, it's already also included sa closing entries. No? Baka ma-confuse yung mga ibang nagbabasa ng other books. Yan. Yan po yung ating complete process flow. No? So from the very start, no, up to the very end. Analyze, journalize, ledger. Tapos, pasok sa worksheet. After ng worksheet, gawa ng financial statements. No? And gagawa rin ng adjusting entries. Tapos, popost mo ulit yung adjusting entries sa ledger. No? Now, pag nakompleto na siya, you will start to journalize the closing entries. And then, the last trial balance, which is the post-closing trial balance. And then, last but not the least, isasara mo yung libro. No? Yun yung tinatawag ng mga accountants na isasara yung libro. Closing entries. Wherein you will zero in the revenues and incomes. Ayaw. So, what are adjusting entries? No? Aside dun sa nabanggit ko kanina. Can someone tell me what are adjusting entries? So, adjusting entries. They are made in the accounting books on the last day. No? Yun nga yung kanina. Of the accounting period. Of an accounting period. Whether it's the year, quarter, or per month. No? They are recorded in the books of accounts. Ano nga po ulit yung books of accounts? No? Bonus points na lang po yan. Beltran, ano ba yung books of accounts? Masyado silang relax. Hindi, pagbigyan naman po nating iba. Pamaya na lang po, Miss Banaan. Ano naman yung books of accounts, Mendoza? Baka you want to share. No? Kung nahihiya po, you can message me dito sa ating yung chat dito sa classroom. Sige, hirap. Okay. Nauna si Lim eh. Sige, Lim.
Sir, yung books of accounts po, ito po yung mga formal accounting books na ginagamit po natin sa pag-record. Ito po yung original entry and yung final entry, also known as journalizing and posting po.
Okay. Bogay, ano naman yung yung general journal? Paki-recap lang po sa ating mga classmates. Ano po yung journal natin? No? Actually, nabanggit na, no? Yun po yung tinatawag natin na Book of Original Entry. No? So, lahat po ng mga transactions, no, triggered by the source documents, dun po nire-record. So, yan. So, at the end of the period, babalik po tayo sa journal to make the necessary adjustments. No? And the different accounts and their balances are summarized in the trial balance. When a transaction is started in one accounting period, no? Let's say, first quarter to second quarter, no? An adjusting journal entry is required to properly account for the transaction. No? Adjusting journal entries can also refer to financial reporting that corrects a mistake. No? Pwede mo rin siyang pang-correct. Kaya nga po yung adjust is also a way of correcting. Diba yung nauusong term ngayon, no? Sinong mag-a-adjust? In this case, si accountant or bookkeeper. Okay. Okay, there are 7 no, sa book. Wait lang. Wala yung book sa tabi ko. Saan napunta yung book? Ayun. There are 7 sa book natin. Okay, so tapusin lang natin itong 7 na to and then we will have our health break. No? Can someone discuss ano po ba yung inventory? No? Umuulit lang po tayo. Refresher lang po tayo. Mr. Bumatayo, maybe you would like to share ano po yung unused supplies or inventory.
Ito po yung mga based po sa mismong pangalan po nila. Ito na po yung mga unused po supplies. Ito po yung mga nakatago po sa loob po ng isang business or sa parang mga factory po. Mga hindi na po nagagamit. Di pa po nagagamit.
Yes, no? Usually yung mga hindi pa nagagamit, no? Which is absolutely correct. No? So check nga natin yung definition. Yun nga, no? Supplies which remain unused at the end of the accounting period. No? So, nandyan lang po siya. So, they partake the nature of prepaid expense. So, yung prepaid expense, ang example niyan is yung load. No? Bumili ka ng load, hindi mo pa ginagamit, pero binayaran na po natin. No? So, ganun po ang kinalalabasan ng ating inventory. You haven't used it, but you already paid for it. So, ang adjusting journal entry for our unused supplies or inventory are as follows. Debit unused supplies and credit supplies expense. No? Debit kasi nasa iyo pa yung unused supplies, no? Tinanggap mo. No? But you have to let go of the supplies expense. No? At the time they are bought, supplies expense is debited. Hence, at the accounting period, this account will be overstated. No? So, kailangan gumawa ka ng adjustments. So, this account will be overstated by the amount of the unused supplies. Hence, there is a need to reduce the balance of this account and recognize the asset of unused supplies. No? So, pang-counter mo lang siya. No? Kasi, paano naman tong mga unused supplies na to? Hindi mo pa siya nagagamit for this period. Next period, possibly. No? So, yan po ang ating adjusting entry. It's also in the book. So, for those who have the book, medyo you can check. Prepaid expenses, no? So nabanggit ko na si prepaid expenses. They are items that are acquired and paid for in advance. So yun nga, yung sample ko yung load, no? Bumili ka ng load, nagbayad ka na, hindi mo pa nagagamit yung, let's say, yung promo or yung amount ng load itself. And are gradually get used up during the accounting period. No? So prior to adjustment, assets are overstated and expenses are understated. No? The adjusting entry will depend on what method the business organization adopts while recording the initial transaction. So pakita na lang po natin yung record adjusting entry. So let's say renta na lang, no? Prepaid rent, debit prepaid rent, and credit rent expense. Para ma-record mo yung prepaid rent. Mukha siya magulo, but later papakita natin yung examples. I'm just showing you the adjusting entries muna. Okay, still have enough time. Number 3 are accrued liabilities. So yung accrued liabilities, no, yun naman, accrued expenses are expenses that are paid but not yet incurred. Can someone give me an example ng accrued expenses? Meron po ba? Yes, Santos? So, same lang po. Yes, can someone give me the example? Bogay?
Ano sir? Yun ba yung mga salary?
Medyo mahina, Mr. Bogay. Paki-ano na lang. Doon sa chat, pakilagay na lang. Okay lang. Banaag, example of accrued expenses?
Ano po sir, yung unused vacation or sick days po.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So, paki-ano na lang, no? Hindi ko talaga marinig, sorry. I'm not sure kung... Ayan, no? Salaries daw. No? Okay. pareho lang po yun doon sa book. Na iba lang siya. So, gayahin natin sa book. So, these are expenses not yet incurred but already paid. No? Binayaran muna. No? Hindi mo pa nagagamit, bayaran mo na. Considering that the item of expense is not yet paid, hence it is not yet recorded, there is a need to recognize the expense. No? Kailangan i-recognize mo na gumastos ka. No? And the liability in the books. So, usually, no, after the month end, no, utilities, no? Yan po yung isa sa mga example. So when cash is paid, the adjusting journal entry is debit utilities. No? Tinanggal ko lang accrued but pareho lang po yan. Utilities expense and credit utilities payable. No? Pwede rin po siya tawaging accrued utilities expense but usually accountants prefer the utilities payable. No? So same lang po siya. To record the unpaid utilities expense. And number 4, unearned revenue. No? Can someone tell me what are unearned revenue? Tawag naman ako ng iba rito. Abing, what is unearned revenue? Delay yung chat natin. Ano nga si ano ah. Okay, Mr. Bogay, pagbibigyan kita, take advantage. What is unearned revenue? Kahit message mo na lang sa akin. Okay?
Sir, naiwan lang po nakataas, sir.
Okay, naiwan nakataas ang kamay. No? Baka may gustong mag-discuss kung ano yung unearned revenue. Yes, Beltran.
Ito po yung mga ano po, prepaid insurance, advance rent payment po.
Okay, narinig ko, insurance. Wait lang. Unearned income. Yung renta, no? Another, it's a good example. So, they refer to payments for goods to be delivered in the future or services to be performed. No? Ano ba yung example dito ano ba yung definition dito? Unearned income is an income not yet earned but already collected. No? Hindi mo pa kinikita. No? Pero nakolekta mo na. No? Advance. No? So, yung example sa book is rental income. So, rentals are usually paid in advance. No? Kami dito sa bahay, nagpapaupa kami 3 months deposit, 1 month advance. No? Ganun po ang rules. No? Yan. Pareho lang po. At the end of the accounting period, a portion of the amount collected is not yet earned. No? So, there is a need to reduce the revenue. No? Kailangan ibawas mo. No? After this, mag-CR muna tayo. No? Health break, 5 minutes or 10 minutes na. There is a need to reduce the revenue and recognize the liability unearned income. And ganun din po yung ating adjusting entries. So the rental income, debit rental income, and credit unearned rental income in order to record the unearned income or unearned revenue. Some books use revenue, some use income. Pero they're just one and the same. No? Accrued revenues or accrued income. So what are accrued revenues or accrued income? Ano naman po? Yes, Jeronimo.
Accrued income naman po is an income already earned but not yet collected.
So, ano na, no? Dapat nakuha mo na, pero hindi mo pa nakokolekta. No? Yun po yung Tagalog, no? Considering that this item of income is not yet collected, hence it is not yet recorded. There is a need to recognize the asset. So, yan. The outlay of cash, no, pina-technical lang ng konti, precedes the actual consumption of the economic benefits. Okay? So yan po yung ating adjusting entry to record the accrued income. So let's say interest receivable. Debit interest receivable and credit interest revenue or interest income. No? Pareho lang po. Note, the term accrued can mean unpaid. No? Ibig sabihin, hindi pa nababayaran kapag expense. No? Or hindi pa nakokolekta. If it is an income. No? So accrued, hindi mo pa nakokolekta, naiipon. Similarly, the term deferred can mean prepaid. No? Prepaid if it is an expense. No? So pag prepaid naman, binayaran mo naman in advance. Or pre-collected if it is an income.
Po yung estimated receivables which may not be collected.
Yes, no, yung mga ano, no, mga abangers na utangers. No? Pare, pautang naman diyan. Bes, pautang naman, no? Pero nagagalit pa pag siningil mo, di ba? So yun po ang ating bad debts. Or impairment loss. It's an application of the conservatism principle of accounting, which when applied to assets will imply the overstatement of assets is undesirable, no? Kasi yung mga utang po, no? So tumataas po yung assets. So this referred to the estimated receivables which may not be collected as per the book, no? Hindi nakokolekta. Yun nga po yung na-mention ni Ms. Lauron, no? This being the case, the bad debts will be considered as an additional expense, no? So nagiging expense siya over time kasi hindi nagbabayad. So let's say ako meron akong utang kay Beltran, no? Hindi ako nagbabayad. Bad debts po sa kanya yun. Because the value of that asset decreases, the decrease is considered as an expense and should be recognized as such, no? Bad debts will be considered as an additional expense. So the adjusting journal entry is debit impairment loss, no, or bad debts. Pero ito yung usually ginagamit nila, no. And credit allowance for impairment loss to record the provision for bad debts. Note, no, itong allowance for impairment loss is a contra asset account, no. So baliktad po yung debits and credits pag contra asset. No? So it will be shown as a reduction, no? Kabawasan sa ating accounts receivable. Ang babawasan yung accounts receivable to arrive at the net realizable value. No? So let's say accounts receivable ni Jeronimo is 5 million. No? Tapos may utang sa kanya si lockup na 1 million. So bad debts, magiging 4 million na lang po yung ating accounts receivable. So yung impairment loss is an income statement account. Whereas the impairment loss is a balance sheet account. And 7, no, depreciation. No? Halos lahat naman po nagde-depreciate, no? Sino po yung hindi nagde-depreciate? Refresher lang po. Paki-remind lang po kami. Ano po yung item na hindi nagde-depreciate? Tawagin ko muna si ano, no? Borromeo, ano yung bagay na hindi nagde-depreciate? Okay, nahiya. Nauna si Pigao. Sige, Pigao, what is that?
Sir, land po.
Yes, no, lupa, no? Sana lahat na-appreciate katulad ng lupa, no? Katulad ko, hindi ako na-appreciate ni cash. But nagde-depreciate tayo habang tumatanda. No? Depreciation refers to the decrease in the value of a non-current asset. Na-discuss na natin yan. So just ano lang, ulit lang. Due to the ordinary wear and tear. No? So ito yung problem. Pag ginagamit mo madalas, nagde-depreciate. Pag hindi mo ginagamit din, madalas nagde-depreciate pa rin. No? It's a victim of the elements. No? Let's say yung kotse. No? Paggising ni Castillo, no, may bigla na lang sumulpot na kotse sa bahay niya. No? Regalo daw sa kanya ng kung sino man yun. Pero hindi nga ginamit. It will still depreciate. No? At pag lagi pa rin niya ginagamit, laging road trip, punta ng Baguio as a friend, punta ng Bicol, punta ng kung saan-saan, no? Nagde-depreciate pa rin. No? So the process of allocating the cost of an asset such as machinery or a piece of equipment over the serviceable or economic life of the asset. Saan na tayo? Mahaba ito. No? Actually, hindi ko na nga pinakita yung how to estimate bad debts. You can just check dun sa book. No? So examples of assets na nagde-depreciate, halos lahat po, no? Are furniture, equipment, machinery, even yung building, no? Except yung lupa. Yan, no? So when an asset is purchased, it depreciates by some amount every month. Hindi lang po nahalata, no? But nagde-depreciate po. Which is charged to expense while the credit is regarded as a contra asset account that is accumulated over the estimated life of an asset. Depreciation. So this type of adjusting entry has the following terminologies. No? Yung cost ng asset, magkano yung asset? Salvage value or scrap value, which is the estimated amount of recovery. No? So pag wala ng silbi, no, bebenta mo na lang sa junk shop, yun po yung tinatawag nating scrap value or salvage value. And the estimated useful life. No? Gaano katagal. No? This is an accountant's fair estimate of the economic life of the asset. Carrying amount or net book value is the difference between the cost of the asset and the accumulated depreciation. No? Iba po yung depreciation in a technical sense and iba po yung depreciation sa accounting parlance. No? For accounting parlance, it's about magkano yung gastusin. No? For the technical depreciation, yung gaano po yung kalaki na impact ng depreciation itself. So that is the adjusting entry for depreciation. Debit depreciation and credit to accumulated depreciation. Note that accumulated depreciation again is a contra asset account which will be shown in the balance sheet. So yun, depreciation is nasa income statement. No? Ito kasi yung ginagastos. And accumulated depreciation is in the balance sheet as a deduction from the asset account being depreciated to arrive at the carrying account. So yung sample ng how to compute estimated depreciation is also on the book, no? Page 63. Yung mga may book, paki-share na lang po sa mga classmates. Now, tapusin po natin yung ating sample scenario, which is pizza aroma. No? Recap lang po. So, if you will remember, ito yung mga transaction na nangyari kay pizza aroma. No? May 1, no? May 1, and May 1. No? Those are the transactions on May 1, and then yung transaction on May 2. And then transaction on May 3. So, bakit sir nagkaroon ng blue, no? We will check later. May 8, May 9, May 10, 12, 15. Okay, so nagkaroon ulit ng blue sa certain dates. 16, 31, 31, and 31. So, walang blue ron. So, ito po yung sample, no, for the adjusting entry number 1, which is unearned income. No? So, paalala lang, nung May 7, yung mga fraternity ay umorder, no? Place large orders for end of May graduation events and for mid-June reunion weekend. Giving Pizza Aroma 6,000 pesos cash on deposit in mid-May. No? So, ibig sabihin, 2 buwan yung binayaran. Di ba? Collected 6,000. No? When received, the business recorded 6,000 cash as unearned revenue. A liability to recognize its obligation. No? So, nakakolekta ka ng 6,000 pero it's still not yet the time to record it. Para sa next month pa yung revenue na additional 6,000 for the upcoming graduation. No? Ito yun. Yung mid-June reunion weekend. No? So, May pa lang po, no? Hindi mo pwedeng i-recognize yung 6,000 na isa. So, Pizza Aroma earned no revenue when it received the cash because hindi pa niya dinedeliver yung mga pizza. No? So, yan po ang ating transactions, debit cash, and credit unearned revenue. No? Yan po ang ating adjusting entry number 1. Okay. So, pagdating ng May 31, ang adjusting entry mo is unearned income debit 4,000 and pizza revenue 4,000. Ayan. So, afterwards, you will record it on your unearned revenue. So, meron kang adjusting entry number 1 sa ating unearned revenue, which is on the debit side. And yung pizza revenue sa credit side, no, magkakaroon ka ng additional na 4,000. So, change balance po ang ating ledgers. Number 2, yung accrued revenue. No? Remember, nagpasok siya ng 60,000 cash in a savings account at a bank. Si Mauricio Rosa. So, on May 4, Pizza Aroma deposited 60,000. That savings account earns investment, no? Interest. Nagkakaroon po ng interest revenue over time. But Pizza Aroma does not receive cash until a withdrawal is made when needed in the future. So, 60,000, no? 5% of 60,000 yung interest na tutubuin niya. No? So, you have a debit of 1,800 and ganun din po, no? Credit of 1,800. No? 5% yung interest rate. Yan. No? So, 300. Divided by 6 months mo. So, for May 31, you have 300 debit and 300 credit interest revenue. So, interest receivable, magkakaroon ka ngayon ng bagong account called interest receivable, ledger account, debit, and credit na 300 po. Kung ano man yung nangyari sa journal entry, pasok lang din po ulit sa ledger. Next is AJE3, Prepaid Expenses. No? So, supplies po. Dalawa po yung transaction na nangyari na merong supplies. No? So, May 3 muna tayo mag-focus. Pizza Aroma orders and receives 20,000. No? Tumanggap siya ng 20,000 in supplies on account from local fresh food suppliers. And then, May 8, Pizza Aroma purchases 30,000 of additional supplies, paying 22,000 cash. Tapos yung the rest, naka-account. So during May, Pizza Aroma purchased 50,000. No? Buong buwan, total po, 50,000. So on May 31, ang estimate ni Mauricio, no, is that 6,000 worth of supplies remain on hand. No? Hindi po naman niya magagamit lahat ng supplies. Meron po talagang sobra. No? So, ibig sabihin, parang 44,000 lang yung nagamit niya. So, for our adjusting entry, no? Yan, no? 50,000 minus 6,000. No? Yan po yung supplies expense natin, debit. Supplies expense, 44,000 pesos. And supplies, 44,000 pesos. Pagkatapos ng adjusting entry, pasok po ulit natin sa ledger. No? So, supplies 50, unadjusted balance po ito, no? Tapos ito yung adjusted. So, 50 minus 44, you have 6,000. Okay. And then sa ating supplies expense. No? So, debit, 44,000. No? For the first time, magkakaroon ka ng supplies expense. So, you have a balance of 44,000 sa ating supplies expense ledger account. No? So, basta equal lang naman po ang ating debits and credits. No? And you have to identify magkano po yung nagamit na supplies. Magkano na lang po yung remaining, no? Yung balance. Adjusting. Okay. Naka-record naman po tayo, don't worry. Adjusting entry number 4, prepaid expenses. So, nung May 1, Pizza Aroma pays 48,000 in advance to the building owner. No? So, ibig sabihin, from May to October, binayaran ni Rosa, Mauricio Rosa, no? To cover rent for the store for May through October. So, ito po yung original nating entry. No? 48,000 debit, 48,000 credit, 48,000. No? So, nakatanggap ka ng prepaid rent, no? And you have parted with 48,000 pesos. However, yung renta na binayaran mo is for 6 months. Ang focus lang po natin is for the month itself. Thus, for May 31, you have a debit of 8,000 and credit of 8,000. No? Pareho lang po. Debit rent expense, tumanggap ka ng expense, and you have to still let go of the 8,000 for prepaid rent. Binayaran mo siya. No? Ito yung gastusin, ito yung pangbayad mo ng renta. And thus, for prepaid rent, iaawas mo yung ginastos mo for the month sa renta, which is AJE for, no? 40,000 na lang po ang ating prepaid rent. And for the rent expense, new ledger account, 8,000 pesos. So, here are the balances of the ledger accounts. No? So, panibagong gawa ng ledger account to. Prepaid insurance. No? So, medyo slightly focal topic. So, like rent, insurance, ay nako, may nagle-lesson, ang ingay niyang radyo niya. Like rent insurance is usually paid for the coverage. No? Insurance is usually paid before the coverage begins. No? Kailangan bayaran mo muna. No? Hindi pwede magkakasakit ka muna at saka ka magbabayad ng insurance. So at the end of May, Pizza Aroma purchased insurance for 24,000 covering June, July, and August. It recorded the asset prepaid insurance on that date. Now, question ko sa inyo, meron po bang magaganap na adjusting entry for that month, for the month of May sa ating insurance? Because the insurance did not begin until June, none of the asset had been used. None of the asset had been used in the month of May. End of May, thus, no adjusting entry was necessary at the end of May. Kasi May po eh. No? For the month of May yung focus natin, ang cover ng insurance is June, July, August. No? So let's say yung sale, no? Bumili ka ng sale. Merong sale ng June, July, August, tapos bumili ka sa May. So hindi po mako-cover ng discount, no, or sale yung binili mo nung May. Ganon din po sa insurance. So wala pong adjusting entry. Pampagulo lang po siya, no? But theoretically, no, let's say sa June, tumakbo na yung June, then magkakaroon na po ng ating adjusting entry, no, for the month of June. No? Yan. However, at the end of June, July, and August, an adjusting entry will be necessary. Kasi pumasok na po yung buwan ng Hunyo. No? So, kada buwan, magre-record ka ng to reduce the prepaid insurance account and record insurance expense of 8,000 for every month. No? So, ibig sabihin, 8,000 debits and credits, 8,000 debits and credits, 8,000 debits and credits. Kasi yun po yung coverage. Pagdating ng September, wala na po. No? Ubus na. So thus, pinakita ko rito, no? Ito po yung mangyayari sa end of June, end of July, and end of August. No? Advance lang po ito. So it's not included sa month of May, wherein insurance expense is debited at 8,000 and prepaid insurance is credited at 8,000. Yan po ang mangyayari. Equipment. Huh? Bakit ko ginawang focal topic ang equipment? Sa operations, no, business operations, wala po tayong takas sa equipment. No? Like now, we're having class, we're using a laptop, which is an equipment. We're using a cell phone, which is an equipment. We're using electronics, which are equipment, di ba? Ganun din po kay Pizza Aroma. They're using ovens, di ba? They're using, yung iba may gas stove pa rin eh, nagluluto. No? So unlike supplies that are purchased and then used over a relatively short period of time, buildings and equipment represent prepaid expenses that will be used for over many years. Meron ba ritong bumili ng oven, no? Tapos within 2 days, sira na. I'm sure kung meron man, may sa malas yun, no? Usually, if you buy an oven, minsan mas matanda pa yung oven sa inyo. No? Yung dyan sa bahay, sa bahay ninyo. No? Usually, our appliances are older than us. But, they are showing signs of depreciation. No? Building and equipment accounts increase when assets are acquired and decrease when they are sold. However, these assets are also used over time to generate revenue. No? So, let's say, si Calano, no, nag-decide na magtinda ng pizza. No, siya na lang muna. Huwag na muna si Pizza Aroma. He is using that oven to generate revenue. No? Usually, times 2 naman ang kita sa food or times 3. So, thus, a part of that cost should be expensed in the same period, which is an application ng matching principle. No? I'm just giving a preview. So, here. So accountants say, no, according to accountants, building and equipment depreciate over time as they are used. I agree, no? Hindi lang po accountants yan. Structural engineers will say that, no? Yung mga mechanical engineers will say that. This is correct, no? Depreciation is an allocation of an asset's cost, no? For accounting, depreciation yung magkano yung estimate na gastos nila per month or per year to an expense over its estimated useful life to the company. So usually, pag 10,000 yung item, dapat ang projection mo is at least magamit mo man lang ng 10 years with repairs of 1,000 a year. Yun po. 4 o'clock na po, no? Malapit na. It is important to keep track of the asset's historical cost. Remember, yung historical cost principle natin, no? You purchase the item at cost. Hindi po yung nagkakaroon ng bagong fair value. No? Yun po yung mali dun sa mga nag-reassessment. No? Pag bumili ng kotse, kunwari si De Leon, no? Worth 1.5, dapat 1.5 pa rin, kahit tumaas yung value ng car. So as such, the amount has been used is not subtracted directly from the asset account. It is instead accumulated in a new kind of account. No? Paulit-ulit lang po ako, called the contra account or contra asset. No? Contra accounts are accounts that are directly related to another account but with an opposite balance. No? Saan po ba ang normal balance ng asset? Reminder lang po, baka mayroong nakalimot. No? So let's say, kunwari na lang, ang normal balance ng asset ay nasa debit side. No? So sa contra asset, ang normal balance niya is on the credit side. Yun lang po. Accumulated depreciation, yan, no? Is used to accumulate the amount of historical cost used in prior periods. Yeah. Because assets have debit balances, accumulated depreciation has a credit balance. So tama yung sinabi ko. No? Hindi po ako kwentong kutsero. No? Tama po, credit balance. On the balance sheet, the amount that is reported for equipment is its net book value, which is equals the ending balance in the equipment account minus yung ending balance sa accumulated depreciation. So every year po, ina-update po. No? Maraming ways to compute depreciation, pero ang usual natin is yung single line. No? Meron po tayong formula ng depreciation sa book. We will use that. Okay, so naiwan yung isa, no? So let's say ito, equipment, no? Debit and credits. Okay lang ba yung sound ko? Baka naghahang ako. 5 minutes left. Okay. So debits, yung equipment, then credits yung sa sell. And then baliktad naman sa contra asset, no? Or accumulated depreciation. Ang connotation niya is XA. No? So X for contra. So debit is the normal account. No? So ito po yung magiging net book value. No? So if you will remember, bumili si Mauricio Rosa ng oven worth 360,000. No? And then ang computation na lumabas, no, ng accountant is 3,000 ang magiging accumulated depreciation. So, ang mangyayari, ang net book value na lang is 357,000 pesos. So, hindi ko madidiscuss sa chapter 4 today, no? And AJE 5, no, tuloy lang po. Yan, pakita lang natin. Yan, no? So, at the beginning of May, Pizza Aroma purchased 360,000. No? Of course, hindi ka naman bibili ng 360,000 na oven para next month sira na, no? Sayang yung pera. No? It was used for 1 month to generate revenue. No? Just 1 month. If you will remember, binayaran niya yung cash ng 330,000 and meron pa siyang liability worth 30, no? Not yet paid. Yan po yung previous transaction. Now, adjusting entry is 3,000. No? Yun po yung estimated nilang depreciation. No? So hence, debit depreciation and credit accumulated depreciation. Yan po. Pakita ka lang. Let that sink in. Yun nga. Credit side is the normal balance, so 3,000. And depreciation expense. No? You will have 3,000 pesos as well. Not sure kung pangilan na to. Adjusting entry number 6 is accrued expenses or wages. No? So sabi rito, nung May 10, nagbayad si Pizza Aroma ng 10,000 pesos cash, no, to employees for work during May. No? Binayaran niya yung sweldo ng mga tao. Wages. No? So of course, kailangan bayaran mo yung mga tao. No? Although a company may employ workers steadily, the business does not pay employees until after they work. No? So nauunang magtrabaho. No? Katulad namin, nauuna kami magtrabaho bago kami susweldohan. Which is usually normal naman. Hindi naman pwedeng unang bayaran yung sweldo ng mga empleyado, no? Tapos hindi na nagpakita yung employee. Diba? The business does not pay employee until after they work, usually at the end of the week, every 2 weeks, or the month. So usually sa trabaho, it's every 2 weeks. So at the end of the accounting period, then an adjusting entry records the expenses for the wage na utang sa mga empleyado who have not yet been paid. So yan, no? Ngayon, ang ginawa rito, sabi ni Mauricio calculates the business incurred 1,000 pesos of wages expense that was not yet recorded. No? Hindi pa kasi mababayaran. No? Pizza Aroma's employees work the last week of May, but they will not be paid until June 1. Nangyayari po yan. No? Minsan, imbis na 30, let's say, alanganin, no? Auno na yung bayad. So, thus, the business incurred 1,000 wages expense. So, when cash is paid, ang mangyayari po, debit wages expenses, no? And credit wages payable. Ito po yung mangyayari. No? So, yung wages expense mo, madadagdagan pa po yung balance niya, magiging 11,000 na po. Number 7, 8 sila actually. No? Accrued expenses or utilities nga. So, adjusting entry number 7, Pizza Aroma use utilities. Lahat po tayo gumagamit ng utilities to generate revenue in May, but because no bill was received by the end of the month, no entry was made to recognize the expense incurred that month. No? Hindi po natin alam kasi hindi pa natatanggap yung bill ng kuryente. No? So, ang ginawa ng owner, nag-estimate lang po siya. However, Mauricio estimates that Pizza Aroma used 10,000 pesos of electricity and gas in May. No? Siguro, dahil sa nagtatrabaho siya dati sa mga restaurant, yun yung estimate expenses. No? Yun po, doon po siya nag-come up ng ganitong amount. So, when cash is paid, debit, utilities payable, 10,000. No? Tumanggap ka ng utilities. And you have to let go of cash, 10,000. Yan po. No? Pasok lang po natin sa ledger. So, AJE6 para maalala nyo. No? So, both will have a balance of 10,000. Kasi first time magkakaroon ng ganitong ledger accounts. And last, the interest. Bilisan ko na lang. So Mauricio negotiates with a local bank and signs a 3-year, 200,000 peso note in Pizza Aroma's name. So it's a liability of the business. Interest, konting ano lang natin. When a company borrows funds, it must pay interest. Siyempre, uutang ka, merong interest. Each day that passes, the company incurs interest expense. Lalo na ngayon, sa Philippine government natin, pag hindi ka nagbayad ng on time, ang laki po ng penalty. Let's say, yung utang mo 100,000, hindi ka magbayad ng mga 1 month, baka magdoble. So most loans require payment of interest at the end of the month. Siyempre, babalik mo yung pera. An adjusting entry is needed at the end of the period to record the accrual of any interest expense owed. So, balik. Yan, no? As each day in May passed, the company used the borrowed funds and incurred interest. But, ito yung caveat niya, Pizza Aroma did not record any expenses kasi umutang pa lang siya 3 years pa. So, nag-ano lang siya, nagpatulong siya kay accountant. Pizza Aroma did not record any expenses because no cash for the interest had yet been paid. So, ang ginawa na lang ng accountant, nagpatulong siya, he determined that 2,000 pesos will be the interest expense incurred during May. So, depende doon sa conditions ng note payable. So, at the end of May, the 200,000 principal recorded as notes payable remain due, so no adjustment. Yan na, nakaguhit na po. No adjustment to notes payable was necessary. However, 1 month of interest expense has been incurred. So, ibig sabihin, wala kang adjustment sa note payable. But, sa interest expense, meron po. Yun po yung ibig sabihin niya. An adjusting entry is needed to record the 2,000 in interest expense for May and the related liability in interest payable. At ito po yun. So, ang tansya nila is po 1%. 1% per month. Kaya 2,000 po. Sa mga nakakalimot, 200,000 times 1%. Paki-check po yung calculator. 2,000 ang lalabas. And then for the year, kinount niya na as 1 year, 24,000. So debit 24,000, credit 24,000. But for the adjusting entries, isang buwan lang naman kasi, May lang po. So hence, it's debit interest expense, credit interest payable. Tumanggap ka ng gastusin sa interest, babayaran mo yung interest, and you will have to let go of your payable. Pasok ulit sa ledger, interest payable, credit, interest expense, debit. Both are new ledger accounts, so madadagdagan yung ledger, and po ang balance. And here's the summary of our adjusting entries. AJE1, AJE5, yan po lahat ng mga nangyaring adjusting entries. You can just check later. And adjusting journal entry summary, yan po, nilista ko na po. AJE 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. After that, magkakaroon po tayo ng revised T accounts. Konti na lang, bear with me. Cash, 91,000. Ganun pa rin, walang nangyari dyan sa mga yan. Investments. Ito yung bago. Ito yung mga nadagdag. Interest receivable. Ganun pa rin si accounts receivable. Supplies. Nagkaroon ng adjustments. You can see AJE 3. Prepaid rent, AJE 4. Prepaid insurance, no changes. Equipment, no changes. Ganun pa rin. Accumulated depreciation. It's a new account, contra asset. 3,000. For the liability, walang nangyari, same pa rin. Wages payable, no? New adjusting entry. Utilities payable, new adjusting entry, no? New ledger accounts, and interest payable, AJE 8. And unearned revenue, AJE 1, 4,000. Notes payable. For our equity, yun pa rin po. No? Silang dalawa pa rin po. And with that, pizza revenue, no? Meron pa rin changes, AJE 1. Investment revenue, AJE 2. Supplies expense, ganun din po. Wages expense, utilities expense. No? So mag-update ka ng ibang ledger accounts. But for the telephone utilities, rent expense, meron po. And advertising, wala po. Pinapakita ko na lang. Actually, tapos na po tayo. AJE 8, 2,000. AJE 5, 3,000. And pakita ko lang yung unadjusted trial balance. Ito po yung last time. Recap lang po, 694,000 yung lumabas na ating debits and credits balance as per trial balance. But due to the adjustments, tumaas pa po. No? So tumaas yung debits and credits. Ibig sabihin, understated, no? Yung debits and credits previously. So here you have 710,000 na po, 300 ang ating adjusted trial balance or ATB.
The name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. That in all things God may be glorified. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay. Practice lang din po kayo, no? Medyo, it's not easy, but practice makes perfect sense. Thank you.